you could please put those questions in the chat portion of the GoToMeeting window. We'll make sure that we take a look at those, and if we can't get to them during the webinar, we'll get back to you later. So these are the topics we're going to cover today. So first of all, we'll talk about the requirements challenge just briefly. I don't think there's a whole lot here that's new to most of you because you're living this, but as you probably know, well, I've been in the requirements industry for many, many years, more years than I care to mention. And one of the things that I know has happened is that we have gotten a little bit better. Years ago, the numbers were that, you know, 2/3 of project failed. Now we're down to half. So we're doing much better, but it's taken us, you know, 20 years to get there. So there's still a lot of money spent on projects that are reworked because of poor requirements, that are delayed because the requirements weren't complete or weren't well understood. Most fall short of the intended return on investment that the project was going to give back to the company, and 30% are canceled prior to completion. And so those are just some numbers that really kind of continue to make us take notice of the requirements issues, and I don't see them going away anytime soon. There's a, whoops, went a little bit too fast here. Let me go back. There's a gap between the market needs and business requirements, and we see this over and over again that, you know, greater than half of the requirements going to product releases. That means that there's about half that are never implemented. We spend a lot of time gathering and documenting them, but for whatever reason, they fall off the radar as we get into development. 1 to 3% of requirements become obsolete each month, and I'm sure you've seen that on projects where things kind of go by the wayside as we get further and further into development. Upstream and downstream activities are not connected. We don't have that full traceability that we would love to see. And there's not much communication for visualizing the solution and making sure we're properly scoping or de-scoping the project, and decision support. I mean, do you remember why you made a decision 6 months ago? Most of the time we don't remember that. So making sure that we document the rationale for some of our requirements is just as key as the requirements themselves in many situations. Embedded systems are even more unique, but they still have the challenges that most projects have. Dispersed teams, a lot of times the subcontractors who are building little pieces of those systems are totally separated geographically from the prime contractor. So that makes the communication even more difficult. Diverse formats and hardware where every group is kind of doing its own thing. Their processes are different. There are a lot of non-functional elements of critical value that don't get the emphasis that they need in embedded systems. And there's a lot of confusion around modeling and architecture and what kind of tools are we using. And, you know, everybody, again, is doing their own thing, which makes things even more confusing. Regulatory compliance is a huge deal for all systems, but in particular embedded systems. And so we have to be able to show that we've met those requirements. And then just in general, lack of traceability, you know, making sure that those system requirements trace down to the subsystem requirements and trace down to the detailed design. A lot of traceability there that's not easy to implement or manage, but is necessary for really managing the project. Today's systems have more code and more requirements than ever before. Just some numbers to throw out. An aircraft carrier has about 1 million requirements. A hospital information system, 90,000. Train control system, these were contract requirements, not detailed requirements, 14,000 contract requirements. I know I worked on the Tomahawk weapon system for many years. We had about 10,000 system requirements, which were then allocated to about 12 different subcontractors, so we had to break those requirements down even further, so they turned into more like, you know, 50,000 requirements by the time we were all finished. And trying to manage that manually is an impossible task, as we found. You have to have some way of automating that traceability in order to manage this complexity. It's just impossible to do it without some kind of tool. The challenge, well, I'm just really click happy here, sorry. The challenge is to produce more quality in less time, which is the goal everyone has, but it's very hard to do because of some of these challenges that we mentioned before. And we have to learn how to be more agile. Now, when I say agile, I don't mean necessarily agile the methodology, but just agile in our processes. How can we turn things around quickly? How can we get requirements reviewed quickly? How can we make sure that we're communicating with everyone? And communication of those changes as they go up and down that chain, the hierarchy of requirements, is critical, again, as we said before. And then just the general global collaboration. I love this little slide here. It's very simple to say hello in all these different languages, but if I'm writing a requirement to make sure this gets implemented, it becomes not so simple to write or to test. So we have diverse platforms, critical elements don't receive the proper emphasis, and not being able to consider all aspects. Where's this going to be deployed? And usually it's in many different environments around the world, which makes our job even more difficult than it has been in the past. So we know most organizations, even within their own system engineering team, don't have a lot of consistency in processes. As you go from project to project, those processes are very diverse, and it gets even more diverse when we talk about the prime contractors and the subcontractors. Different tools, different processes, different methodologies. Trying to tie that all together so it makes sense is a huge challenge. We can't really communicate well often, and we can't really reuse any training that we have because we are so different. And this leads to defects and failure, in particular during integration. As I begin to pull the pieces back together to integrate into the overall system, this is when I start to find where some of those breakdowns occurred. And traceability in this environment is nearly impossible because we're all, as I said before, kind of doing our own thing. The tools are different. And so maintaining that full traceability is a very big challenge on these large projects and complex projects in particular. Model issues. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but in general, models are inconsistent. They're often confusing. The notations are all different. Everybody has their particular model paradigm that they are most familiar with and like, and it may not be something that other people use. So my only comment here really is that models should be something that the reader can really read and understand, so you know who's going to be looking at the models and kind of what their technical expertise is. In particular, stakeholders are most interested in very simple high-level models, not the detailed models that we often give them. So we just want to be careful that our models are consistent, that they're up to date, kept in sync with the requirements, and that's the challenge, of course. Regulatory compliance. Most embedded software is related to critical systems, and there are lots of standards out there. All of these systems must comply, and that compliance must be documented. So, of course, we want to document the requirements, trace our system requirements back to those regulatory requirements. Many times we have to show how we verified and validated those requirements. So, again, more traceability that leads into the testing world. And all of this often, if it's done manually, results in a lot of failed audits as we come in and are unable to prove that we met a particular regulatory requirement. So, of course, we want to make sure we have that traceability all the way from those regulatory requirements down to the systems, subsystems, and the way we're testing. Non-functional requirements are even more critical in embedded systems. I always use the example of John F. Kennedy's requirement to put a man on the moon within this decade, which changed the entire space program. They were doing a lot of analysis and paper type work, and they immediately had to change that and go to prototyping, starting to build and try different things in order to meet this one non-functional requirement. So most systems focus on functionality, but within embedded systems there's even more focus on the non-functional. You don't have a lot of wiggle room in embedded systems with non-functional requirements. And in embedded systems, a non-functional requirement can impact the entire system that it is functioning within. So again, not a lot of room to miss or to not deliver on a non-functional requirement because it impacts the overall system. A lot of methods are not well documented. In most organizations, everybody's probably read some books, been to some training, but there's no real documentation that really provides a standard process for all the methods that their system engineers are going to use. So there's not a lot of detail about how the engineer gets to the specific work product that they're delivering. And lack of traceability, I know I keep pounding on this, but I think it's really the key, is that if we don't have a good connection between the requirements and our test plans, I'm going to throw the test plans in there as well, that if we don't have that good connection between them, we don't know what the impacts are of a change down at the development level, because we can't really tie it back to the system requirement that it was derived from. And I know it's very hard to do that traceability. It's not always an easy thing to do when I've got lots of subcontractors developing different parts of the system. But part of their responsibility is to show how they trace back to the system requirements that we give them. So without that full traceability, we don't know that their design is actually meeting the requirements. We don't know that when we pull all the pieces together, it's actually all going to work. And there's no way to really manage risk without knowing, you know, if we're looking at a system requirement that we want to change, what is impacted by that change? What are all the components that are impacted? And communicating that to all the teams underneath. It's just a huge challenge, and there's no easy, simple solution, but we hope we're going to show you something that can help. So these are the main 7 tasks of system engineering: stating the problem, looking at alternatives, modeling the system, integrating the system, launching, assessing performance, and then reevaluating. So typical system engineering roles, if you will, things that are done during that particular phase. And of course, there's a lot of other things that are not detailed in here. It looks really simple when you put these 7 steps on a slide like this, but the tasks themselves are much more complex than this. So let's just introduce to you, now that we've kind of gotten an overview of some of the challenges and what IRQA is really targeting are the challenges that we talked about in these previous slides. I just want to give you a little background on Visure Solutions. Visure was founded in 2007 as a spinoff from TCP, who was a systems integrator. They have been totally focused on the delivery of innovative requirement solutions since 1999. And I want to emphasize here requirement solutions, because one of the things we are very focused on is keeping our focus on the requirements and not kind of drifting off into other areas. Those other areas are covered by a lot of experts, so we work with partners to look at some of the other pieces of the project that you might be interested in, but we are focused really on requirement solutions. The headquarters are in Madrid, Spain, and there are commercial presence in 25 countries, sales office in Spain, Germany, Sweden, and USA, ISO SPICE certified. So we believe our approach to a requirement solution is pretty unique. We're really focused on process. Mature requirements engineering processes consistently produce better quality products on time and within budget. We know that's true. There's lots and lots of information out there today that confirms that statement. And our goal is to help you not only with a tool, but with your process as well. And everybody might have a little different twist on a process, maybe different kinds of information that are critical to your project. And so we want to look at your process first and then look at how the tool can support that process. Collaborative Requirements Platform has a direct impact in bridging the gap, and IRQA provides that collaboration platform where all of my project members, team members can look at requirements. We can set up unique views for them to see the information that they are most interested in. And we believe that product quality starts at the beginning, and it has to be built into every stage of development, all the way from requirements down to the execution. If I don't have good requirements to start from, as my user needs, then everything I do after that is, as I always say, like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. If I don't get it right up front, I can do all the work to make it look neat, look like I'm on schedule, look like I'm doing all the right things, but my end result is still not going to save that ship, because eventually it's all going to break down because I don't have my requirements specified correctly. So we want to talk about quality from the very beginning and implement that quality all the way through. So just some things that Visure can help with. We believe we can improve in the quality of definition as an essential first step, like I talked about, making sure we get those essential requirements right up front. Regain control of development and regulatory processes. Any tool, but in particular IRQA, because it is process focused, can help standardize and enforce requirements definition across the organization. Supports effective reuse. Being able to take components and reuse them across projects is really essential, and across different variants in the product. Almost everybody today is building a product that has a lot of variants associated with it, and being able to manage that kind of complexity is very difficult. Being able to formalize the common requirement structure and how the changes are going to be managed on those projects. If you have engineers going from project to project to project, how great would it be to have the same requirement structure used throughout those projects. Achieve full traceability through all elements, from requirements to testing and execution. That's our goal, really, is to help achieve that full traceability. And track all aspects of development with ease, from risk calculation graphics to things like orphan traceability reports. You know, being able to get metrics on changes to requirements. How many requirements changed, were added, deleted? How many high priority requirements haven't been tested? The kind of things that are essential and critical to really managing a project, those are the kinds of things that IRQ can provide. And avoiding pitfalls to mitigate risk at all levels. We help by making sure the requirements are structured properly and being able to prioritize those requirements as we go through development, to make sure we're focusing on the most important requirements first. So these are some things that we believe IRQA can do for you. And so now we want to get to the demonstration and give you a look at the tool. And again, as we go through this, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat window, and we will make sure we address those. We've saved some time at the end of the webinar to be able to address some of those questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jean-Francois.
Okay, hi everybody. So I am Jean-Francois Thibault, and I'm going to do the live demo part of this webinar. So, like Marcia said, if you have any questions during the demo, just please put them in the chat window, and we'll try to answer those questions by the end of the presentation. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to open IRQA. So this is IRQA. I'm just going to move my webinar windows on the right here. Okay. And what I'll do is I'm going to log myself as a system engineer in this system template project that we have that can be used for people who do not have a process yet, or that wants to get a fast start, a quick start with our QA. You know, we can provide templates, and what I'm going to be presenting today is something that a customer can use if they want to start implementing a process in our QA. So, like I said, I'm going to log as a system engineer in the project, and then we'll see what we call the default view when we open the tool. So here, basically, what you're looking at is the process that will be used in this project. So here we have implemented a system engineering process for this particular template, where we try to stay as generic as possible. But like any process that you will define in our QA, you will be able to modify that if it doesn't fit your needs, or you'll also be able to start completely from scratch if you want to define another type of process. So basically what we see here is we see a project that starts with some user requirements. So user requirements can be, customer requirements, requirements coming from the customer, from the marketing department, some from business rules if you have some business analysts in-house. Then you take those user requirements, you decompose them into system requirements. Then you continue decomposing those system requirements into component requirements. Component requirements can be mechanical, electrical, software requirements. Then all these requirements are being validated through tests. So you have some component tests, some system tests, some acceptance tests. And in this project, I also have some risks. So for FMEA analysis, so let's say you need to do some FMEA analysis, you can add some risk object to let you doing that. So the idea is that you're going to use the tool to enforce your process. And once this is done, then you can have people you can force people to follow this process. So for example, you can make sure that people will not create a customer requirements and link it directly to a software requirements, because in your process this is not how you have defined it. So once you have defined this process window, you can start using it to browse it. So basically the process window is not just a static image, it's really a diagram that you can use, that you can open. So here, let's say I'm looking at my system requirements. If I close that, then I can select now the component requirements, open the box and see what's inside. So what you're drawing here is not just not a pretty picture. It's really something that you can use. And what we're discovering with customer is that a lot of customer will have something like this already drawn somewhere, but that's the type of document that it's going to be put on the shelf and they will never use again. While when you're using our QA, you can basically draw this in the tool and use it every day. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a specification. So this is for this project the component specification. So here you're looking at a document type of view. So for people who are used to working with Word type of document, can continue using continue doing that in the tool, and describing their specification with with section, with their requirements. They can put some picture in their requirements. They can put some visual diagrams. So what you're looking at is a visual diagram, let's say. And they can also start associating attributes to their requirement. Okay, so for example, if you want to start modifying in the view, first thing you need to do is to check out the requirement, because in the tool, RQA does the configuration management for you automatically. So every single object will be configure managed. So when you're starting modifying it, you make sure that nobody else is doing it at the same time, and the tool also keeps track of the full history of your requirement. So from the edit view, you can start changing your requirement, changing the attribute, change let's say the multi-valued attribute, change the name, change the description, as if you were working in a true document. Then once you're done with the modification of your specification, this can be exported to Word. So basically, if you need to communicate this specification, or you need to send that to a customer, to a subcontractor, or to some certification authorities, you can use a Word template to define the actual format that you'll want to use, and export it as in a Word document. You can also do the same with Excel. So everything that you do in a tool can be exported to Word and to Excel. Okay. Same thing if you're getting some documents from your contractors or from some customer, you can also import them into the tool. So you don't have to start from a blank project. You can import some of the existing requirements you may have right into the tool and start working on day one with RQA. So when you want your user to start defining those requirements, what you can do in the tool is you can have a bunch of templates predefined for them, so to make sure that they're defining the requirements in the way you want it. So here, for example, if I want to create a software requirement, here I've got a window that has that has a template defined. So the tool automatically generate a code for you, a requirement ID. So every requirement will be tagged with an ID, with a unique identifier. Then you can start. Let's say here I'm going to create one software requirement that I'm going to call image encryption. Okay. Then let's say I'm changing the priority attribute to medium. And here you can also define a template text to help your user create that requirement. So this can be modified by you, or we can propose some templates if you need to. So here, let's say I'm going to just double click on my, just copy paste the description that I have. So, and I'm going to click OK. And then, as you can see here, the requirement gets created in the database. Okay, so let's change some of the attributes here. So I can use the view to change attributes. Then from the description panel, you can make it look like as a Word document. So all the description will be rich text description. You can start drawing picture. You can drag. Let's see here, I'm selecting an Excel sheet, and I'm going to drag it in there. You can drag some Office document as oily object. So if you double click on that, it's going to open Excel, and you'll be able to start modifying your Excel sheet right from the tool. So everything will be configure managed. So once you have your requirement, you can start creating links of requirements. So let's see here, I bring the properties of that requirement. I can bring here the related requirements where I can see the traceability. Then I can, let's say, select here one of the system requirement and create a traceability link. So like this, you can use, you can create traceability between those requirements. So you can use the property tabs. You can also right-click on the objects and start and set the relationships. Okay. So once you have these links created, then here, if I switch view, you can start looking at your requirements and have a look at the traceability. So here I'm looking at the traceability between, the first level is the system requirements, and underneath I'm looking at the component requirements. And here you can see the traceability link that I just created between this system requirement and security, and on the software requirements that shows a way to how to implement some security in the project. So with the tool, it's super easy to create views where you'll be able to start doing impact analysis. So if you're modifying these system requirements, you'll know that you're going to impact the software requirements that is linked to it. Okay. Another way to see traceability is to use the traceability matrix. So here, if I start the traceability matrix, and I'm going to open one of the traceability matrix that I have in my application, in my project. So here you're looking at, again, the traceability between the system requirements and all the component requirements. So here you can see that the tool will automatically generate the table. We also keep track of what we call the suspect link. So if you do a modification on a requirement, then link can be turned suspect. So it means that you should have a look at both requirements, the parent requirements and the child requirements, to make sure that the link is still valid. So this is an option that you can use to start tracking those requirements. Then you can start doing some analysis. For example, have a look at all the requirements all the components requirements that are still not related to some system requirements. So here I've got a list of component requirements. Don't have any traceability links, so maybe I should do something about them. Okay. So if I go back to showing all my requirements, so this traceability matrix can be also exported right into Excel. So if you need to take it out of the tool and just put it in some document or share it with a customer or with some certification or authorities, then there's a way to automate the generation of the traceability documents. Okay. So this is how traceability can be viewed in the tool. Okay. Next thing I want to show you here. So here I was looking at requirements, but in the tool we can also define other types of objects. Here, for example, we have some test cases that you can define in the tool. So here we're looking at a test plan that is attached to my project. So you can use the tool to define this test plan. So again, you're going to have some unique identifier for each of the tests. You're going to have some description. You can even have what we call, you can even create the test case procedure in there. So here you can define some step and who's going to execute those steps and what should be the system answer, respond to those steps, and you can put all this in the database. Once you have your test plan, you can link that test plan back to the requirement, but you can also start tracking results. Okay, so you can create what we call test sessions of your test plans, and this will create objects that's going to track the actual execution of that test plan. So for example here, for each of my tests, so here we see that we have we have created one test plan here, and for each of my tests I can see the full history of the execution and the actual results of these executions. So here you can see that we have some pending, we have some pass, we have some fail. You can start associating files to a test. So for example, if I select this guy that has a fail, then I can open the actual results created maybe from an external document. You can open that, see the reason of a fail. So you can see here, for example, I had to switch between modes, and I can see that my for mode, the value is not the one that I was expecting. Then you can track some. Tester can track reasons for fails right into the tool. So here I've got a text telling me why is this test failing. Then the idea here is to put all this information right in the database. So you don't have to start looking for emails, start looking for documents all over the network to get, let's say a reason of a fail, or even to be able to get the actual execution of these tests, because now you can use a tool like RQA and start tracking all these details. Okay, these test objects can be then linked to actual requirements, because you just don't want to have tests in their own in their own world. You want to start tracking requirements to tests. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch back to my testing my requirement view, where here you can see I've got a new column that basically tells me the traceability between the actual requirements and the tests from the test plan, but also here we're looking at the last execution of that test. So you can basically, in one view, seeing the traceability between the requirements, but also the actual results of the execution of that test. Okay, so again, goal of that is you have all the traceability in the tool. You can start doing impact analysis. You can have a look. So basically here, a requirements engineer can start looking at this requirement, have an idea of where the testers are in their process of testing those requirements, and see that right from one tool, without having to go looking for documents or calling the tester or sending emails to get the latest stand of their project. Okay. So this is an example of other objects we can have in the tool. Another one that we talk about during the presentation are risk object. So here we have an example of risks that can be defined in the tool. So let's say you need to do FMEA analysis. Then the tool, you'll be able to create your risk, and the tool will also be able to automatically calculate the RPN values and the risk level. Okay, you can set up you can set up your own risk level in the tool, and basically tell it what should be low, what should be medium, what should be high, or if you have other levels that you want to add in the tool. So everything is fully configurable. Okay, so here the idea is that you start creating your risk like this, and then the idea is to trace them to requirement. So here you can have here we have a view where we see risk traced to requirement, and at the same way you can then start linking also those risks to actions that will basically mitigate that risk. So again, instead of using for FME analysis, a lot of people will be using Excel sheets to do that. So what we can do is we can import those Excel sheets right into the tool, and then instead of creating more Excel sheet, you can have people creating those risks right into our QA, and then start linking those risks to requirement. Okay. Once you have all this data in the tool, so it's very nice. You have all this data, you have this traceability. The next step you will probably want to do is to start doing some analysis on those requirements. So in our QA we have what we call a report manager that can basically create, you can basically use it to create any type of reports that's going to give you a view of your requirements. So let's say you want to do an analysis on how are we doing with our risk, what's the traceability between these risks and requirement. And here I'm going to show you an example of a risk dashboard report that was generated from the tool, where you can draw some charts, and then here I'm looking at every single risk that I have in this tool, but also the traceability of that risk with requirements, and also the traceability of these requirements to test cases. So here I've got a full kind of a dashboard report with the full traceability, knowing that, okay, here I've got a risk, and then this is also basically putting the proof that I'm trying to mitigate that risk, and what am I doing about it. So I'm also have the traceability with the actions. Okay, so these types of report, we have a bunch of template that we can give you out of the box, but you can also, what's good with the tool is that you can also create your own reports. Let's say there's some more information you want to have in, or you can create your own report for stuff that we don't have already. So this is an example of a report that we can generate. Another example here that we also talked about during the presentation is, for example, a report that's going to give you the list of orphans requirement in the tool in your project. So here, basically, I'm going to give a list of all the requirements that are not linking to anything in the whole project. So instead, again, of having to go into documents, trying to get that information, here with one click of a button, you can get that information right away. So here you can see here the list of all requirements, and here I also have the risk in this report that are still not linking to anything. So I've got some business rules, for example, that are not linking to anything, so I will need to do something about it. Some standard requirements, a standard that I'm using. And then at the end you can also put some metrics, like how many requirements that I have. Here I've got 20 requirements out of 85 that are not linking to anything, so I've got 23% of my requirements that I will need to do some more work on. Okay, so this is an example of a metric type of report where you're gonna have project manager that will want to see the advancement of a project, and these type of report will be you'll be able to generate these type of report to help your project manager with that task. Okay. Maybe last thing I want to show you before we can start answering questions is just want to show you a full impact analysis view, where I'm looking at all the levels of requirement, starting from my user requirements down to the system requirements and the component requirements. So here you can see that I can look at as many levels as I have in my tool of requirements and have a full view. So basically, we know that if we're changing the standard, then we're going to impact all these tests, all these component requirements, and these test requirements. Here we can see that we have some requirements that still don't have any that were still not decomposed, so we'll need to do something about it. This is the same information that I showed you in the report. But also you can see that we have next to some of these requirements, we have a kind of a little lock. This is basically these requirements are basically requirements that are being reused from another project. So in this case, these are standards requirements. So this is one of the first type of requirements that are kind of easy to reuse in a project. So let's say you need to follow a particular standard, and you know that you'll will have to apply to that standard in every single project or in multiple projects in your company. So what you can do is you can create like a library of requirements. Let's say here this particular standard, and when you want to when you'll have a project that will need to apply to that standard, you can push those requirements. You can publish these requirements in your project, and then they'll be made available, and you'll be able to start linking to them. So these requirements are really requirements reused from other projects. So in the tool, it's really easy to create what we call components that will become kind of a part of the libraries of requirements, and then you can start publishing them in your projects. And we can do that with requirements, with test cases, with risk, with even I haven't showed you that, but we also have ways to create use cases in the tool, textual and graphical use case, and you can reuse all these objects. So this kind of terminates my demo. I wanted to keep it short so we can have some time to answer some questions. But if you need some more information, maybe in the future, we can surely arrange some one-to-one demos with any of you to maybe show you more things about the tool, more features. Okay.
So Jeff, if you can go back to the slides and
sure, yes.
And maybe you can check that chat window for questions. I'm not sure. I'll do a little wrap up here, and then if we have any questions, we can try to answer those.
Yes.
Okay, just a brief summary here now that you've seen a little bit about IRQA and what it looks like. So we're looking at, as we talked about earlier, the process, the collaboration, the quality. We want to ensure traceability and reusability, and here are some of the features within each one of those that we support. And I want to just point out here to the verification and validation piece down here that we do want to provide traceability to tests, to use cases. We provide some semantic analysis and some prototyping support. So in addition to all the things that JF showed you, there are lots of other things that IRQA can help you with as well. We can support any process. So if you're using Agile, we have a way of supporting that. If you're doing waterfall, we can support that. IRQA is very, very flexible, so it doesn't really matter what your process is, what development methodology you're using. We're going to help make sure that all the stakeholders are involved, that they're looking at the requirements. We're going to help you mitigate the risk, and all methodologies in between. So basically the methodology doesn't matter to IRQA. What we're doing is providing that support around the requirements management and traceability piece. IRQA is very flexible. You lay out your process, how you're going to, what kind of documents you require, what kind of requirements you're going to capture, how you want to organize and structure all of that, and then IRQA then helps enforce that. We're going to help you streamline that all the way from requirements capture down to testing, help manage the project. We can help with reuse as well. We can help analyze those requirements and make sure they're written in a clear, concise way. We can build those specifications that you need. Really, IRQA does all of it. And I believe that all the things that IRQA supports so well in particular is because we are totally focused, as I mentioned before, on the requirements management piece. We're making sure that you can manage those complex requirement structures that you need for different variants, for multiple releases, all of those kinds of situations. Process support, collaboration, quality improvement, that's kind of our mantra. So we've emphasized that, and hopefully through the demonstration you saw some of the things that IRQA can do. As we mentioned, there's a lot of other things that we'd love to be able to show you, so if you're interested in additional information, we hope you will get back to us and ask those questions. We want to help with collaboration as well, help enforce process, risk mitigation, overall quality, and you know, the key piece here is that subsystem developers understand how other parts of the systems are designed and how they're going to interface with those other parts, and that's what this collaboration piece is really all about. We think by using a tool like IRQA, it's going to help you standardize your processes. We can, you know, provide templates that give information about missing information, things that are required, process reporting and metrics that's just out of the box. You're able to get some of those things, and adjustable weighting of attributes to help provide automatic prioritization, filtered views, you know, information the user is most interested in is what they're actually going to see. And it helps you, you know, sit down and think about your requirements engineering process. And we can help you not only sit down and think about it, but help you improve it and then implement it through IRQA. Ensuring traceability, we all know how important traceability is. You can't just pretend that it's not. We all know it's critical to getting these projects finished and validated and giving back something that's actually usable. And we ensure that through the traceability for all the way from the highest level, you know, business needs, all the way down to implementation details and all the testing results in between. Everything's fully traceable. We can manage changes through IRQA and help make sure that everyone is notified of those changes. Track everything from test results to orphan requirements. Those are some of the reports and metrics that we saw. As you can imagine, you can get very, very creative to run all kinds of reports and metrics out of IRQA once your traceability is established. And those metrics and information can help you make sure you're testing the right things, that you're focused on the high priorities, and that you're really managing change throughout the entire project, not just at one level, that all these changes are being tracked and traced up and down the hierarchy of requirements. So it's not enough to be functional. It documents non-functional requirements as well. You can have non-functional requirements as an entity with an IRQA and link those to all levels of the system. It helps ensure that you are meeting your performance, usability, reliability, some of those other key ilities, as we used to call them years ago, the non-functional things that are so critical to the overall system. So these are just some examples of some of those, but we all know that those requirements often get overlooked and are not traced, but if they're an entity within IRQA, you're going to make sure they're traced through your traceability analysis, and you'll see how you're actually meeting that requirement and how you're validating it as well through your testing. So we believe, armed with IRQA, system engineers can create high-quality requirements. That's what we're all about, and we've shown that to you, but you've seen these particular entities in here as well. Again, there's a lot of other things that IRQA also provides, but we didn't have time to show all of those great things, so hopefully you'll be interested enough to ask us for some more information about that. So in summary, systems in general, but embedded systems are more complex as ever. We've got to get better quality products out the door. If our products are out the door quickly, but they're not high quality, it's not going to help us in the future. Nobody goes back to buy a second product from a company that didn't deliver the first time. Requirements management tools must be collaborative, consistent, provide traceability, and we believe Visure Solutions with their product IRQA meets all of these challenges. So we're very excited about this tool. We hope that what you saw gets you excited as well and brings you back for more information. So let's see if we have any questions that we want to answer. JF, do you have any questions that showed up?
Yes.
Okay.
So give me 1 second here. Okay, one question was, the first question was, how do you control the traceability of each requirement? So basically, I think we showed a little bit of that. Is you can when you're creating, each of the requirements will have, as we can expect its own traceability to other requirement. so every single object will, can be linked to another, object in the project, and that object can be, requirements, test case, risk, use cases, as we saw in the demo. And also by this configuration management that we have embedded in the tool, this checking and the checkout, we make sure that, people will only be able to modify the object if, first of all, if they have a right to modify it, and then if they can, if nobody else is modifying the object at the same time. So in our QA, we do it at the object level, not at the document level. So let's say you only have to modify one single object. You don't need to check out, let's say, the whole document to modify your little single line in that document, but you can just focus on the particular object. Same thing we do that once, when you start checking in and checking out, then the tool will start tracking the history of these changes, and that includes the traceability. Okay. Another question is about, is this a desktop application or a web-based software as a service? So what you saw today is our desktop version of the tool, so one that is run on Windows machine, where the database can be stored, on your own premises. So you can have your own database server. So we can use a SQL server, Oracle server, so commercial databases. We do have some for software as a service. There's also ways we can also propose a way to store your database, on some external server if you want to do so. So we have some provider that can do that. We also have a web-based version of the tool that is called RQA Web, and this is something we can, if you are interested, you can request for a demo of the tool. And I think also online there's a little demo that shows a little bit of the tool, but we also have the web-based version of RQA. Okay. One of the question was if desktop only, Windows only, Linux and Mac support it. Right now the desktop version is Windows only, but the web-based can be, the RQA web version can be run on any platform and on any browser out there. Is RQA the abbreviation of something? Yes. If I remember correctly, it means Integral Requisite Quality Analyzer. I think I'm right on that one. One question was, what about the integrations? So the tool has out-of-the-box integration with a couple of tools. So if you need to, we have ways to exchange information between RQA and other requirements tools, other popular requirements tools out there. We also have some integration with UML tools, SysML tools like Enterprise Architect, for example. And also, modeling tool like Simulink. We have integrations with testing tools. Like right now, there's a show in San Jose where an integration is being announced at the Embedded Conference, and we're basically announcing an integration with the LDRA tool. So LDRA tool is a tool used for static analysis, coverage, and also unit testing with source code. So we have an integration with LDRA for as a testing tools. We also have an integration with Jira and with some other defect tools like Bugzilla. This is, if you're interested of having a full list of the integration that we have, because I'm probably missing a couple of them. This is some information that we can share with you. Just send us an email and we'll be able to share that. And that basically answers the next question. Is it possible to integrate RQA with change request bug report system like Jira? And can we maintain that kind of traceability as well? Yes, you can. We have an integration with Jira where, like I was just saying before that, and this integration basically you can you can import your issues in RQA, you can trace them to requirement, and then you can export back this traceability back into Jira. So basically, it's a two-way, it's a bidirectional integration where you can see the traceability information in both tools, in RQA and also in Jira if you need so.
JF?
Yes.
Could you please put up the next slide with the link to the...
Yes, you're good.
Please. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to make sure everybody could see that.
Yeah, so when
get that information.
Exactly. When I'm talking about emails, this is where you should send your questions if you have any. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay. And also with Jira, we're working right now with an integration that's going to integrate let's integrate RQA with Jira, but with the task. So let's say you're using Jira to create tasks, then there will be, in the near future, there will be a way to see, for example, you have a task that says you need to implement these requirements, you need to do these changes. So there's going to be a way to see the actual actions that you've done this task, and you'll be able to see the history of these actions in Jira. So everything that you've done in RQA then will be seen in Jira, basically. So this is something that we're really excited about. How about the options to import-export to from Doors? So yes, Doors is, as you might know, is one of the major requirements tool out there. So we have full integration with Doors. So that's an example of an integration with a requirements tool. So we can fully import and export, from into Doors requirements, and everything else you might want to do in Doors, and that includes all the attributes, the full traceability, and the full requirements object. Okay, and you can import from Doors, do stuff in RQA, and export back to Doors if you want to. That's kind of the last question. Somebody says that RQA does also work on Linux using Wine. Okay, so Wine is, I guess, I think this is one of the kind of a virtual machine type of software for Linux. So yes, if you have RQA running in a virtual machine, let's say using VMware. Okay, we're saying it's an emulator, okay. But let's say you have also virtual machine or emulator, RQA can run on that and then can be used in Linux, Windows, or even Macintosh if you have a Mac OS enabled machine. So
okay, well, we're right.
Yeah, that's the last question that I had. So
we're right at the top of the hour, so I was just going to break in and kind of just thank everyone for attending. We appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you very much for everyone.
Good job with the demo. We hope that we've given you enough information to get you interested in IRQA so we can show you more of the wonderful things that we think it can do. And I think it's really applicable to complex systems, which I'm sure most of you are involved in today. Almost every system is complex. So again, thank you for your time. Please contact marketing at visuresolutions.com if you're interested in looking at more of what IRQA can do, or to request a free trial. And with that, we are going to conclude the webinar. So again, thank you so much.